Welcome to the Bucher and Friends podcast, co-starring 10-year NBA center Ryan Hollins.
Couple bump fakes, leans in, shot blocked by Ryan Hollins. Hollins sent that into the third row.
6 rebounds and 8 assists.
Hollins climbs the stairs.
Down the floor. Ryan Hollins, he is the high jumper.
That's what I want to see. Give me some gunpowder and throw the hammer down.
And now, here is your host,
Let's send it over to Ric Bucher.
Ric Bucher.
Welcome to another episode of Bucher and Hollins, subsidiary of Bucher and Friends, part of the United WeCast network. And Ryan, we're live inside Staples Center. Have we done this face-to-face? We certainly haven't done
we did All-Star Weekend.
Confines.
Yeah, we didn't go. So we should have went somewhere, Rick.
Yeah,
I blame you for that.
You know what? Feel free.
That's pretty cool.
I happened to buy you dinner at All-Star.
That was a nice dinner.
I would have think that
was a nice dinner, by the way.
That would have earned me a couple of points, but apparently not.
No. You're
what
right.
have you done for me lately?
You're right.
All right. We are recording this after just a brutal beatdown by the Rockets over the Clippers. And you and I both have been in this game long enough to not take anything or not take too much from any one result. There's a good possibility that these two teams could meet each other in the playoffs. Do you take anything from what we saw tonight?
Clippers are thinking about the playoffs. The Rockets are thinking about a championship. So when you have a certain level of experience, you lose in a game 7 in a tough match. I will say controversial because of Chris Paul's injury. You have a different mindset that you lock into. And the Clippers, and I don't want to say that the Rockets have championship experience, but there's different levels being played in the NBA right now. And you're seeing the Houston Rockets really hitting that stride just with the physicality, the way they play. Just they look like playoff basketball tonight, honestly. And they were just just beyond the points or the shots made. They were a step faster. They were more physical. It looked like two different classes tonight.
Compare this Rockets team as they get ready to go into the postseason to the one last year. And I ask that not only from a personnel standpoint, but from a mentality standpoint because of how last season ended. Sometimes I feel as if when you climb the mountain and you fall short, that can devastate a team. A team looks at it and says, that was our chance and we're not going to get another one. And you can just feel it. You can feel it in the way they play. I don't get that sense with these Rockets, even though a lot of their personnel has changed. I feel as if they have the same eye of the tiger as they had last year.
I don't look at the way that the Rockets ended last season. I look at the way that they began this season. They were sitting 12th in the conference and essentially going to be on the outside looking in. They lost their defensive coach. They didn't make a fuss to get back Trevor Ariza. There were a lot of mistakes made, essentially you could say out of arrogance. And through that controversy, defensive coach, help me with him, what's his name?
Jeff Bizdelik.
Okay, he's hired back. He comes back. They do what they need to do to get him back. On top of that, James Harden was in an interesting position. What do I mean by interesting position? He had to defend this year. He had a crutch. He had a number of guys who could defend, do the little things around him last year. And, he kind of went into the season where he didn't have to worry about that stuff. And now this year, he didn't have the luxury of kind of poking at balls and not being in the right spot. He had to literally inch out every single win that he had this year. So you see a more mature, you see a different James Harden this year, rather even more so than the MVP that we saw last year. And, my thoughts and feelings on the MVP race.
Yeah. No, and I'm with you because as I've said, I've talked to a number of players around the league, and they're the ones, not you, other players, have persuaded me that it is Harden, that it has to be Harden. And I've always valued the fact that a guy that you can put the ball in his hands and he can go get you a win, and he can do it against any defense. Everybody in the building knows it's coming to him, and he's got to get it done. I've always valued that. The question was, with Giannis being able to play with all the things that Giannis has done, and with Milwaukee having the best record in the league, how do you ultimately ignore that? But in talking to players, it was, okay, so, and I just talked to Danilo Gallinari about this. He said, look, what Harden is doing is in the West. He has no weaknesses when it comes to offense. And he wasn't saying it directly about Giannis, but basically everything he was saying, you could apply the opposite, which is Giannis does have weaknesses offensively. He can't be your go-to in certain situations. You're comfortable with him having the ball depending on where he is. You're never comfortable with James having the ball. And they have the best record, but they've done it in the Eastern Conference, which to this point, I think the East has improved. I think they have some teams that are capable of winning the championship. But overall, the East still doesn't stand up to the West when it comes to competition.
It's so funny you say that. We interviewed Tobias Harris, a couple weeks ago. The one thing about the East versus West, and he's a guy who's literally playing, was in the West and now playing in the East. He said right now you get some nights off. You get a lot of nights off in the East, and that's undeniable. A lot of them, Rick, okay? There's 4 dogfights. Yeah. Dogfights, okay? Yeah. We're not denying that, but you get a lot of nights off. In the Western Conference, he said there was no guarantee each and every night. And in the East, you can essentially see a couple of these games and you pencil them in and say they're wins. Now, I don't want to diminish what Giannis has achieved, and I love his motor and his growth, but like James is just seeing it against different animals in the Western Conference, and just there's just something about me personally, Rick. I've always been a student of the game. I've had to dive into my scouting report. I've had to watch hours of film on countless players. And when I break down what James Harden's doing, and to say that there's essentially no answer for it other than double team and the guy's willing to pass the ball, that's something that you could have or couldn't have not said about him in the past. You have to give that to him. And not to disrespect Giannis, but he can be contained. You don't lose your mind over Giannis. You lose your mind over the system and say, well, man, if I have to guard Bledsoe's jump shot now, this guy ends up being a factor. Or when I help, he's kicking down open shooter. And you go, well, Chris Middleton's knocking down his three well, and Brogdon's knocking down his three. Now this guy is tough to guard.
No, it's a great point. And, I understand where Giannis fans and Milwaukee fans feel like justice is not being served because he's more of a defensive factor than
I got something for you.
Yeah.
Well, I want to know how you feel about this.
Yeah.
Do you feel that it's more so fans watch the highlights, better yet, and they go, by the highlights, I see Giannis do a little bit of everything,
yes,
and I just see James score,
yes,
or you see in the masses kind of take a deep dive? What side do you put on this?
Ryan, let's be honest. Nobody watches the games. I felt
You're right. Okay.
I felt like an alien because I was doing work during the better part of this game, and I walked out to watch the fourth quarter of what was already a blowout.
Oh, man.
But there are certain things that I'm going to be able to see, and I get to scout some players that you normally don't get a chance to see. And I'm really curious to see how they play in a blowout. Like, who are the guys that are still trying to get after it and show that they can do something, as opposed to it's garbage time. And because look, it's, as you well know, there are so many guys who would love to play in the NBA. Teams are looking for every reason to keep you out. They're not looking reasons to keep you in. They're looking for reasons to put you on the curb. And the goal of every player, no matter where you are on the roster, should be, I'm not going to give them a reason. And yet it's amazing to me, Ryan, how many guys I see where I'm thinking, you got a chance to prove a point here. Yeah, you're in a 20-point blowout, but somebody is gauging and measuring you right now.
It's funny you say that. I'll say in maybe 3 or 4 appearances, I proved that I belonged in the NBA. I played for Bernie Bickerstaff. It was old school. And this is when I believe only 12 got the dress. Maybe it's 13 now, whatever. The number was slimmer. And I didn't see my jersey literally until halfway through the year. All I could do is work out, play some D-League ball, didn't see my jersey. And I got in the game with 2 minutes on the clock, minute 59. And I got a dunk and a block shot, probably tried to run somebody over, got a rebound, whatever. Rick, if it isn't for those minutes, I may not be sitting here today. I probably wouldn't have had a career, but I had to take advantage of those minutes.
Sure.
And if you don't think that there's value there, this league isn't for you, because everyone's not going to value summer league the same. And especially when I played, it wasn't valued the same. Now, the young guys sure didn't have the value, and they weren't just kicking out veterans. Guys played 16, 17 years in the league, and now everybody seems like they get the shot to wear a jersey. But you've got to take advantage of those minutes, and especially the NBA I played in, those minutes really meant something.
I talked to a Clippers fan. I was doing FS1 work earlier in the day, and I was talking to one of the guys there who's big-time, long-time Clippers fan. No, Marcellus was working today. Guy named Chuck. Shout out to Chuck, one of the producers. And he was talking about how, like, the Lakers fans drive him crazy because the Clippers have been in the playoffs and winning for the last 7-8 years. And Lakers fans still give them no respect. And I said to him, I said, here's the problem. The Lakers still do kind of own the town. Like, I don't know how they get around that. And that brings me to my point, which is I look at what they're building. I look at their success, and I look at particularly this year. This was a year that the Lakers with LeBron James were supposed to be the playoff team. The Clippers, in a lot of people's minds, were not, or it was going to be both. But certainly the Lakers were the more sure bet to be in the postseason. And now they're not. And their prospects look going forward are dimmer, clearly dimmer. I mean, we could see other than LeBron coming to the Lakers, like, you could potentially have the biggest free agent star coming to L.A., but choosing the Clips over the Lakers. I just wonder, and I don't know that that's going to be enough, is it possible that this could ever become a Clippers town?
You would have to get 5 championships in 10 years. In other words, it's not going to happen. And now you got generational talent. It's funny, they put up – it's funny you bring this up. So we looked at a stat the other day, and as far as franchise worth, you got, if I'm not mistaken, either Knicks or Lakers and then Golden State. And they go,
Knicks are the most valuable.
Yeah, Knicks, Lakers, Golden State. You sure? Yes. And he said, well, what would it take for Golden State to jump? And I said, they get 2 more championships, and they're going to surpass those 2 teams. And now you got generational wealth because you got a group of fans that remember, wherever year their first championship was. Yeah. Curry and them turned it on for now, and you almost have, close to 10 years of basketball. Now you got 10 years of kids who grew up watching. Why are there still Lakers fans? Why? Because my dad was a Laker, and my dad's dad was a Laker. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Well, you have that. You're building that generation that only knows success. But they're not the ones that are buying the tickets at this point. And this is what really interests me about where the Warriors are. I believe that they are at a turning point here because they're leaving Oakland. They're going to San Francisco. They're going into a brand new arena. They're also going to the fan base is going to change, not just because of geography, but because of the cost of the tickets. The tickets are going up exponentially. Let's say KD goes to New York, as I keep hearing from everyone that's going to happen. Let's say Draymond is never quite Draymond. Maybe let's say they don't find a suitable replacement for Andre Iguodala. Let's say that because they haven't drafted a player of any note that's contributing in the last 4 years, that we're going to see that they're not in the middle of a run. They're at the precipice of falling off, going into a new building, trying to build a new fan base, and with the expectation, because, look, they're huge. They're huge in the Bay Area.
Yep.
But they're huge because everybody wants to be attached to a winner. Let's say they're not. They're still making the playoffs. You got Steph and Clay. You're pretty much, you'll be contending for a playoff spot with those two. Are they going to be okay with that? Or are they still going to show up? Is the arena going to have the home court advantage that they had in Oracle when they were making their runs?
For one, Oracle's always been loud. Now, the runs just demoralize you, and that's Steph Curry. That's Steph Curry and Klay Thompson.
It's not as loud now, though. I'm telling you.
Well,
this year, it's not the same.
No, it's not, because the fans have been spoiled to see it. And I want to throw this out to you, a little contrary to what you said, or kind of on par, different angle. Everyone talks about, is KD leaving or going and whatnot. Nobody talks about KD is likely going, right? And that another star could replace him.
It would have to be sign and trade, though. Cap-wise, if they lose KD, they're not going to have enough cap room to go after get a comparable talent.
So essentially, there's a value there where they can sign KD because they have his rights.
Yeah.
Where they can't just go out and get per se a Jimmy Butler or a Kemba.
Right. They're not going to have the space. Yes. They're not going to have the space to add a piece.
So you'd have to go sign and trade.
Yes.
So now if you're looking at the market, you're hoping that KD, if you're looking at the Knicks, what do you maybe get DeAndre Jordan back? You're just trying to salvage something, if at all?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I wouldn't look for that to be the cure or the solution. I'll ask you this just because it comes up, because we're saying replace KD. I was asked this on Doug Gottlieb's show today. Who's the best player in the league right now? I said KD. Who's the best player in the league right now? I ask you.
This is tough because you got to look at injury. But it's still really hard for me, even in a down year and the things that have surrounded LeBron James, to say he's still the best player, in that where you get down on him is circumstantial. And the tough thing about LeBron is LeBron can be his own worst enemy. And when he has a weight around him or just consistency, the simple things, or somebody say, yo, man, or even Tyronn Lue, as much as you want to say, I know Ty Lue would tell LeBron the correct things. There was nobody that I saw that told LeBron the right things. There was nobody that had the credentials or the fortitude to go and say, hey, man, get your butt back on defense. Or, hey, man, you're doing this, and this wrong. Or like, hey, well, you scored 30, I scored 32. Or whatever it is that I just felt like there was so much going on. He never got pushed as a player this year.
Does he need that at this point? I'm thinking at 34, with all that he's accomplished, and sort of the way he sets things up where he is the authority, it's hard for me to give him the alibi is that there wasn't anybody there who could hold him accountable, because I feel as if at this point, with the decision he made coming to the Lakers, he should have been the one holding himself accountable.
He's smart enough that he gets himself in trouble, that if you don't interest him in basketball or you don't tell him this is something worth playing for, he will take the high road. And he'll say,
he'll take the exit ramp.
Yeah,
is what he'll do.
Yeah, the full on the exit ramp, and say, I'll wait till next year, dog.
Yes.
Whoa. Kuz, you can't really give me 30 in back-to-back games. Ingram, you can't really close them out. Let me wait, because I see where this thing is headed. Let me save it. Let me save it.
You know what this year has convinced me of, and I've always suspected it, is that one of the reasons that LeBron has had the incredible durability that he's had, in spite of all of the long runs, in spite of all the minutes played, is because he does exactly that thing. He's constantly gauging, is it worth my effort to go all in? And if it's not, he's going to dial it back and save it for another day. And having grown up watching Jordan and covering Kobe, that is anathema to me when it comes to the best player in the league. That's the thing that's always driven me crazy, is that I respect what LeBron is. What I don't respect is that I don't know that he's been all that he could be every single time he goes out on the floor. Now, what he has done maybe is said, yeah, I haven't been every time I've gone on the floor, but as a result of hedging my bet when it's not a good one, I've been able to do more because I've been able to remain facile and relevant for a longer period of time than any of these other guys. So Maybe he is the smart one.
I'll throw this at you. Look at Kobe Bryant's career. After Pau Gasol pretty much declined, he was stuck in basketball purgatory in L.A. with nothing around him. Nobody would come here. Lakers didn't draft well. They didn't trade well. They didn't develop well. And Kobe still had that mentality, I'm going to run out of my arms, legs, and knees to try to get you to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And we just physically watched it to where it was like, he's doing too much. He's like, we respect his effort, but it became just bad basketball. And you're glad Kobe was able to go out with the 60 and go out on top of the farewell tour. But I've worked in LA media since playing here as a player. And the narrative with Kobe was ugly. People don't talk about this. They scrutinize LeBron right now. They don't talk about how ugly Kobe's stuff was before the farewell tour. Now, if Kobe had the mindset of LeBron, he would have pushed the Lakers' hand to go and trade for somebody, to develop young talent, to do something to where he'd been in a position to be competitive. And people kind of blame Kobe. Nobody wants to play with Kobe. Well, the front office is supposed to find a way to put pieces around him, and it didn't work.
He did that once. He did it when he was threatening to go to Chicago, when he was saying, I want to be traded, and I want to be traded to the Bulls. They didn't do it. They stuck to their guns, and then they got Pau Gasol, and away they went, and they end up winning 2 more championships. So, yeah, I don't know if he could have played that card again, in part because of the structure of the front office. Jim Buss was still in charge.
But doesn't LeBron?
In terms of what?
I don't want to say LeBron is the GM, but doesn't LeBron play that card? Like, you better get the most out of me while I'm here. Hasn't he played that card?
I think he tried to play that card. But, one, the New Orleans Pelicans weren't willing.
Okay.
And that's why this summer is going to be really interesting.
But you hear what I'm saying. So rather than LeBron just sitting back and going, y'all going to make money and sell jerseys and I'm cool with being here doing – no. I'm here to compete. And Kobe Bryant was so set on being Kobe Bryant that it never happened and the situation just got dude, it was ugly. I mean, it was 4 or 5 years and it was nasty.
But can't you see the same thing happening here in the last couple of years with LeBron? Potentially. That they don't.
I don't ever see his foot getting off the pedal.
It's off the pedal now.
No, hear me. As far as behind the scenes and calling guys and doing what he needs to do and making sure he gets somebody here. Kobe wasn't making no deals or wasn't going to no other player going, man. Like imagine, okay, LaMarcus Aldridge was in the running to be a Laker.
Okay.
I guarantee you, and I want to say I guarantee Kobe Bryant wasn't finessing LaMarcus Aldridge for a year before his free agency trying to get him here. Kobe Bryant wasn't sitting down at the table saying, we'll do this, this, and this for you. That stuff wasn't happening. That's not in Kobe's DNA. While we applaud that, you won't see the help there. And you didn't.
I'm not convinced that LeBron is going to do that. And the reason is because he didn't do it to get here. He signed up and said, I'm going to L.A., I'm joining the Lakers. He didn't know what kind of roster they had.
Me? You didn't see the T-shirt over the face of him talking to every single player and having media stunts and signing. I don't want to say he signed guys to Clutch Sports, but you don't think Rich Paul is out maneuvering things to set up?
For sure, Rich Paul is trying, but the biggest card that LeBron had to play with the Lakers to establish the team that he wanted to play with here was, you need to get this before I come there. You need to be able to do this before I get there. He didn't do any of that. He signed on the dotted line as soon as he could. They brought in Rondo. I'm sure he signed off on those guys, but after the fact, the pressure's not the same.
So I'll share this, and I want to throw it more to Rich Paul than LeBron, because LeBron has kind of trusted them to take with the last bits of his career. Rich from day one told me it was going to be a process. And the expectations, I don't want to say low, but very reasonable for this first year. This isn't a surprise. Anthony Davis was an absolute curveball. Okay, it was a curveball. That caught the Lakers and LeBron and Rich and everybody off target. Caught them, just threw them for a loop.
Which part?
That the Lakers got all in to get him.
Yeah.
And the fact that he didn't come, and the Pelicans, just the way that whole deal
the fact that they weren't able to get AD,
they weren't
was
able
the
to get
curve.
but also the thought process was this first year. Yes, agreed, that was the curve. But the first year was going to be slow. This was not going to be the year. And even if AD came, they wouldn't have looked at this year as the year. It was like, hey, let's see what we can do. Gear up for year 2. So now the pressure is on. But I tell you, this has been a 2 to 3 year process for LeBron as far as searching out free agency, seeing who needs to come in and what needs to happen. So
But he doesn't have 2 or 3 years.
I'm saying 2 or 3 years prior, he was a Cavalier plotting this thing out. Hey, bro, you know what wouldn't surprise me? You know how you step into the GM's office and they have a board with every single player in the league, and it's Memphis, Portland. And you get all these guys, and they're little, and they just plug them around.
But by the way, isn't it great that in today's day and age, when we have analytics and we have computers and we have video technology in every arena where we track every single thing that a guy does. We have magnetic whiteboards, and we have names that are literally. I mean, you talk about going analog. It is the most. It is the most simplistic, Stone Age approach to maintaining roster awareness around the league. It's hilarious.
Hey, wouldn't surprise me if Rich Paul had one of those in office, and they were plotting this thing out and moving names around. Would not surprise me.
I could actually see him sitting in Rob Pelinka's office and they would have a special color for the guys that LeBron would want that were on every roster.
Yeah. But I say that don't sleep on LA.
By the way, are you boys with Rich?
It's my guy.
He's your guy?
Rich was my guy, even if he had nothing to do with LeBron.
Would you tell him to stop? Every time I'm on TV and he doesn't like something I say, or I'm on a podcast and he doesn't like something I say, he texts me.
I'll say this also, Rick. As a former player, when your agent is scared to sever a relationship with the team or play a little bully ball because he doesn't have your best interest in hand, you don't even see where you're getting left out. You don't even see where you're losing money at or leverage. Well, Rich Paul's willing to take those risks. Rich Paul's willing to not be some team's best friend or best buddy in efforts to, take care of his clients, to take care of the players, to swing the power to the athletes who essentially have the power.
Yeah, no, and I would think that's probably why Draymond Green hired Rich Paul at this point. That's a very interesting move.
Yep.
And when you think about the future of Draymond Green with the Golden State Warriors, and another, when we talk about some of the changes with the Warriors and whether they can maintain this, is that another smoke signal that something may be moving in another direction?
He's going to need some bully ball, and he might be in the purple and gold.
Boy, I would not be surprised.
Now, you talk about somebody to bark at LeBron and tell him to wake the heck up.
Yeah.
And to kind of kick him into gear.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah.
That's sexy. Ooh.
Yeah.
Now, the only question for me would be, because Draymond, and we've talked about this all year long, Draymond having some physical issues, can he get back to being? Because it's one thing to bark, but you got to have the bite behind it. You got to be able to play in order to keep people in line.
What scares me most about him is not his body. It's his reluctancy to shoot and his lack of shooting. I don't know where his confidence got shot, but he's shooting worse than when he originally got into the league.
Yeah, he is. And everything's short. He used to be up and down, but he'd go basically, if they had a long road trip, you could see it dissipate. And then they'd get back to the Bay Area. He'd put the extra time in the gym, and you could see the next time he came out, he'd fixed it, he'd gotten it back, and he's knocking it down. And he's knocking it down, and then he's woofing on top of it.
Yeah, he's not even on target, dude. He's airbanked a few.
No, it's and again, in the big picture with where the Warriors are, this is why people keep telling me they're fine, they'll flip the switch. There are too many things that I've seen consistently wrong with them through the course of the year. And Draymond Green not being an offensive threat is one of them. Consistently throughout the year. This isn't like spurts of bad times.
I think they're fine now, but there is a lot of concern moving forward. There's a lot of concern.
I feel as if, like, I don't see the team in the Western Conference that I have the utmost confidence is going to knock them off. But I believe that there are a number of teams that can take them to 5, 6, 7 games and extend them so that when they get to the Eastern Conference and now they're facing the Boston Celtics or the Toronto Raptors, this is not the Cleveland Cavaliers of last year.
That's true.
Once you got past the Houston Rockets, you're like, we're good. We can handle this. This is not going to be a problem. They're going to get to the final round, and they're going to be that's where they ultimately could face the best team that they're going to face. And what kind of condition they're in when they get there is, to me, going to that's going to demonstrate everything.
You had 4 teams essentially go all in. They pushed everything into the pot.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll be interested to see ultimately where that goes. All right. That does it for this episode of Bucher and Holland, subsidiary of Bucher and Friends, part of the United WeCast Network. Keep in mind, wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes or wherever, please rate us. Just hit the stars. If you want to leave a comment, we appreciate whether it's compliment or criticism. And then if you want to get something from us, screenshot the review to us, even if it's just the stars. Screenshot it to us at Bucher Friends, and you will be eligible to win some prizes. All right, in our next podcast, I don't know that we will not be doing this live because you will be on the other side of the country.
Yes, I will.
And we may need to get into the Washington Wizards letting go Ernie Grunfeld. And I want to get Ryan's take on, is this a complete teardown? Is this a job that if you're a GM, you should want because you have a Bradley Beal there or because you have John Wall's contract? There's a yin and a yang to that. There's the plus and the minus. We'll discuss all of that in the next podcast. In the meantime, as always, thanks for listening.